developed to more than just an RDO issue. It developed to, I mean, the entire workforce was out on strike, and everybody that was sitting on the copy weren't all RDOs. There were different occupations sitting there. So, yeah, and I mean, as time went on, we actually became unsure about who was representing the people. We became unsure of whether everybody there still didn't want a union representation.
The fact that they belong or don't belong to a union did not bar you from talking to them in June.
No.
And we're talking about the same people in August.
Yes, and I'll say it again. The conditions in June and the environment in June, when I engaged with my employees who came to see me, were vastly different to when everybody was congregated on the copy.
I accept that. What I'm asking is, does it really matter that the circumstances are changed only this time? You can only talk to them through the union.
Well, I think it matters.
You think that was a significant difference, a historical fact that you knew? That was the bar for management to speak to workers in August simply because they're not coming through the union.
No, that's not what I'm saying. I think I've been very clear on why I engaged with the employees during August. And I think I've been fairly clear on why Lonman did not want to engage with the employees once they were on the copy.
Those are the questions I have for the witness, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Semenya. Re-examination, Mr. Berger?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Mr. Da Costa, there is going to be an argument, we're told, that it would have been prudent for Lonman to speak to the striking workers in the period from 10th of August 2012. Against that background, I want to ask you a few questions. In your 20 or 24 years in the mining industry, have you been involved in wage negotiations?
Yes, on a number of occasions.
I see. In these negotiations, does one negotiate one wage for everybody, or are there different categories of workers negotiating perhaps the same or perhaps a different increase at any given point in time?
No, I've been involved in I think most companies have had setups where you have a bargaining forum for certain categories of workers and another bargaining forum for other categories of workers. Like the more sort of skilled categories tend to be in one forum, and the lesser skilled categories in another forum. But once you're in that forum and you're bargaining on wages, then you generally bargain for everybody. There might be some differentials that you agree to in some wage categories, one or the other. But when the agreement is concluded, it's concluded for that bargaining forum. And then the various, maybe different increments and so on are then detailed in the body of the agreement.
Just want to make sure that I understand that. If you speak for an employer and a trade union speaks for a body of employees, do I understand correctly that at the end of the negotiation, typically one would get a, say, 10% increase for everybody in all categories, or you may say a 10% for the lower categories and 9% for the top categories?
Yeah, generally it turns out that way, yes.
I put that to you because I want to understand, and I'd like to put that before the Commission, that the ballpark would either be the same or very similar, 9% to 10%. You won't have one category getting a 1% increase and the other one at 20%, typically.
I've never experienced such a such a big differential in increases now.
Still by way of background, the little bundle.
Before you move on to something else, by categories, to use Mr. Berger's word, is it meant grades? Because there's a lot of talk in the papers about Patterson grades. And as far as I can see from some of the agreements that I've looked at, there appears to be a particular wage set for a particular Patterson grade of workers. Is that right?
Yes, so grades or categories, yes. Yes.
And then, as far as I can see from some of the minutes I read of wage negotiations, a lot of the debate turns simply on the percentage increase for particular grades. In other words, at some stage in the past, wages were agreed for particular grades of people. And then what seems to happen in many of the minutes I've read, the negotiation next time round simply deals with what percentage increase should be given to particular grades. Is that also the way things normally happen, or do things happen differently perhaps?
It is generally like that. So there are wage bands set for each category or Patterson grading or whatever. And then generally what has happened certainly in the past has been that you talk about a percentage increase on those wage bands that are set. I mean that changed slightly in the most recent negotiations we've had, but generally in the past that was the case.
Thank you. Sorry, Mr. Berger, you were moving on to another point.
No, I'm not. I'm just developing the background. Thank you, Chair. I assume there will be outliers over a 20-year period in negotiation of wages, and you'll have a particularly exceptional year whether there's an outlier increase. But in your experience, what would be the typical range of increases yielded by these annual negotiations in the platinum mining industry?
I'd say over the last 5 years or so, it tended to be around sort of 7-8% for the more skilled categories, and in the lower categories, around about 9 to 10%. I think there was 1 year when we were doing pretty well that we settled on 13%, around about 2006 or so, but generally 9-10%.
We've handed in a little bundle called XXX3. If you have a look at page 20 and 21 of that bundle, just to get a feel for the basic salaries of RDOs at the relevant time, that's the document with the different columns, giving us a pre-increase and a post-increase. And at my page 21, I have page 2 of a document which has at the top, table 2, remuneration post-October increase. You have that?
It's 265 overall of the London
265 at the top. You can really look at it at the screen, Mr. Da Costa. You would recognize the document. For my purposes, do I read it correctly that the basic salary there for Lonman after the increase was just under 6,000 rand, 5,891?
Yes, that's correct.
Correct. What did you understand after your discussion with the RDOs in June of 2012? What did their 12,500 rand demand relate to?
As I said, initially when they tabled it, I thought it related to the 9,761 at the bottom. But then when I clarified it with them, they were clear that it was the demand was in relation to their basic. So the line that says current basic 5891, that was it.
Now, this argument that's going to be addressed to the Commission is what we would call a hypothesis. It says, if this had happened, we try to understand what the result would have been. Now, I want to invite you into my crystal ball. Let's do it. Let us assume for the moment that Lonman had spoken to the striking workers round about, say, the 10th of August 2012. Assume that for purposes of my crystal ball. You with me?
Yes, I'm with you.
Assume at the same time that those workers had agreed to nominate people to speak for them, because it's unrealistic, I put to you, to expect that Lonman would speak to 3,000 people, or 300 people for that matter. Assume there's a subcommittee who can speak for the rest. You still in the crystal ball with me?
Yes.
Assume further that there was a safe place for negotiation. So assume for the moment that the LPD on the 10th was such a safe place where you could negotiate with spokespeople for the people outside. You with me?
Yes, I'm with you.
Assume for my postulate that there would not be an objection by the incumbent trade union NUM to you talking to RDOs or a representative of a group of people directly. Assume all of that in place.
Yes, okay.
Now let's start the negotiation. Let's now do the postulate. You now negotiate for Lonman, and the 5 people negotiate for the people outside. Presumably, in our postulate, that negotiation goes something like this. You know that the basic salary for a category of people, very important in this debate, is 5,891 rand per month.
Yes, that's right.
The spokesperson for the 5, the chief person, he says to you, we want a basic of 12,500. Where does the debate go from there?
Well, probably downhill very quickly. That's
Why do you say that?
well, I mean, when the demand like that is tabled, you say, well, gents, it's unaffordable. There's just no way we can concede to that.
Let's take the hypothesis further, and the spokesperson says to you, I'll settle for 12,000.
So it's still hugely unaffordable. We cannot. There's just absolutely no way we can.
He says to you, I'll bend over backward, Lonman, because I really want to diffuse the situation. We're still in the crystal ball. I'll take 11,500 basic.
It remains unaffordable. I mean, close the company at those increases.
Have you, in your 24 years, ever been party to a negotiation where wages went up by 100%?
No.
By 50%?
No.
Now, we stood in the crystal ball because that's our exercise. We now have reached a point where we can't reach each other. You can't go to 11.5, and the spokesperson can't go down further. What do you think happens now?
Well, so that's probably end of discussion, and they walk out and give feedback to the people that have congregated outside to say that we're not reaching any agreement with the management. They don't want to give us the demand that we've tabled.
Now, it's a difficult question. I don't want to be unfair to you, but what happens then? On the probabilities.
Well, I've got to say I don't know what happens then, but the possibility is that you're going to have some very, very highly irritated and angry people out there who are really quite upset with what management is doing to them, I guess.
Okay.
No, I mean that's.
I want to approach the same matter from the same point, slightly different angle. In your experience, you asked by Mr. Berger what probably happened. Have you, in your experience, encountered cases where that very thing happened, where there was a deadlock, the company couldn't go down below a certain figure, it couldn't go above a different figure, I'm sorry. The company couldn't go above a certain figure, and the negotiators on behalf of the workers couldn't go below a certain figure, and there was a apparently unbridgeable gap. Have you encountered that situation in the course of your 24 years in the mining industry?
Yes, I've encountered it, and normally when you get to that sort of position, then it ends up being referred to the CCMA or to some sort of mediation process, and then ultimately ends up in a strike. But on many occasions in a protected strike. So that's generally the road that you go down there. I think Sorry, just to follow it up with Mr. Berger's question. In other words, it's not just a guesswork thing.
you're asked to say what would probably happen in that situation, and probably the most scientific way, that's the correct word, of finding out what would probably happen in a situation is to look at what's happened in the past in that situation. And you say, what often happens then is that there's a strike. They go to the CCMA, the CCMA can't conciliate, and a certificate is given, and there's a protected strike.
Yes, I mean that's
not just recent experience from
no,
this year.
but
We're talking your 24 years.
Yeah, that's where negotiations are conducted in a proper manner with the organised labour representatives and so on, and then the mediation processes are followed. But in this instance, I would imagine that the most likely outcome would be that if people are getting that sort of feedback where management refuses to accede to the demand, they would most likely be very, very upset and could then create some anarchy.
Chairperson? Yeah, okay. I'd like to object to this line of questioning, of this going down this hypothetical line forever. I did not object initially because I think most of what Mr. Berger has put as assumptions were in fact what happened. But as far as the issue of what might or might not have happened when the RDOs were engaged, we do have a reference point, which is what actually did happen after the tragedy, because those direct discussions did take place and they did not lead to any chaos. In fact, they led to a solution.
All a matter of argument, but to be fair to Mr. Berger, I haven't heard what his reply is to you, but I would my own response is this. Mr. Semenya asked the witness a number of hypothetical questions, based on the proposition that if the London had been prepared to negotiate, then there wouldn't have been the tragedy, and therefore it's London's fault to some extent, at least. And I understand that. And the argument was put to the witness, which he didn't agree with, was that the probability was that if London had been prepared to negotiate, there wouldn't have been the problem. And Mr. Berger's questions, as I understand it, are designed to interrogate that aspect of the matter. Admittedly, it's hypothetical, but the questions he's interrogating were in themselves hypothetical. Yeah. I don't know how much further he's going to go. I understand your point, which is a matter for argument, of course, that one can look at what happened after the tragedy, when everybody came together under the shock of what had happened. And there were facilitators who came in, like Bishop Sioko and so on, who were able, it may well be argued, partly because of the tragedy, to achieve a situation that perhaps wouldn't have existed otherwise. But those are all matters of argument. I'm not deciding them one way or the other. So I think we should let Mr. Berger carry on a bit more, because essentially he's re-examining, trying to deal with the point raised by Mr. Semenya. Whether he succeeds in that is a matter we'll see.
Yeah, Chairperson, I understand that. If I may, yeah, I accept that. It's you might remember that it's not only Mr. Semenya who pushed that line. I did it for most of the morning. So I understand that. But all I'm saying is that in both myself and Mr. Semenya in pushing that line, we're not relating that to some hypothetical situation, but to the actual experience of this witness in handling a similar situation. So,
but I will allow the question to proceed. I take it you're near the end of this particular point, Mr. Berger, are you?
Well, I don't make any promises. I have to close it off because I have.
No, I understand. No,
I'm frivolous. No, I accept that.
Yes, frivolity is something that we have here occasionally. We don't encourage it, but we can't stop it occasionally.
Well, as long as I'm not laughable, let me try again. I would like to develop this further with you, Mr. Da Costa, on this basis. Have you, in your experience in the past 24 years, ever been party to wage negotiations with workers in an unprotected strike? while they were in the unprotected strike?
Not in wage negotiations. Not in wage negotiations. No. I've dealt with other issues during unprotected strikes, but not wage negotiations.
No, I'm talking 12,500 down to 11,500 against 6 wage negotiations.
No.
Have you ever been aware of this happening at any other platinum mine? That an employer will negotiate wages with a crowd of people while they're in an unprotected strike?
I think it may have happened at Impala early on in the year, but it's certainly not a typical practice. No.
I want to clear up something which maybe might have left a misunderstanding. There was a reference this morning by my learned friend Ms. Barnes referring to the notice of the mass meeting. And there was a suggestion that what was handed up as Exhibit XXX was a clearer copy of the notice of a mass meeting you've debated in your evidence at page 3, reference now. I don't have it now. 3. Oh no, I have it, yes. You bear a moment at page 30,322. You remember in that portion of the record, you're asked to translate the Fanaga law into English, and you do so.
Yes, I remember.
But you do so from a different document than what is today XXX10. Just have a look at XXX10, and you may want to look at the document, the very indistinct one, which you had looked at before.
That's page 157 that would appear.
I'm indebted to you.
Of the London bundle.
I'm indebted.
It's Annexure B.
All I'm pointing out is 157 is not the same as XXX10.
Because the date is missing. The
Date is
document
missing.
we were given today has got a clear date, 1905.
Yes.
1905. This one, the date section is blank. And the word offices is at the bottom of the one we were handed. And the Annexure B to your affidavit is just office in the singular. So it's clearly not the same document.
Chair, we've looked at it. I don't think it affects the translation, but I just wanted to make sure that we have no misunderstanding as to which document
The
is
point
which.
of is, of course, the document we were handed in today, of course, does seem to indicate that there was still a dispute. There was going to be a mass meeting because they wanted entry to their offices. And that was the 19th of May. And whereas the agreement had already been signed, giving them the right to have offices. It does look as if offices hadn't actually been made available at that time. But, of course, the point you're making is that the dispute relating to overtime had arisen earlier, and that's supported, or attempt is made to support it by Annexure B, which can no longer be dismissed as a May document. That's the point you're making, I take it.
Then just finally, Mr. Da Costa, the whole faceless debate. You've explained to us how you understand faceless, being the crowd was not representative of any identifiable body, be it a trade union or a group of people. What I want to ask you in conclusion is, would that problem raised in that context have been addressed by taking a photograph of them?
No.
Thank you, sir. Those are the only questions in re-examination.
Why wouldn't it have been addressed by taking a photograph? If you'd taken the photograph and gone to the HR people and said, whose face is this? And they said, oh, that's Mr. Mamushnoki, if he'd still been in your employ, then you would have known who the leader was.
Yeah, but I think that the point I was making and the way I understood Mr. Berger, is that my interpretation of faces was that there was no formal representation for the group of people. So, taking photographs of some informal leaders would not have solved that problem. So, and my understanding is when reference was being made to faceless people, that was what the reference meant.
Anything arising from the re-examination? I hope not. From my question. Oh, I'm sorry, I asked the question. It certainly will.
Listen, well, one or two. Mr. Da Costa, I just want to ask you, are you aware, firstly, are you aware that according to the police witnesses, and Chairperson, I must apologize, I don't have the statement at hand, but if there's an objection, I'll deal with it. Are you aware that...
But how will you deal with it if you haven't got the statement at hand?
Well, then I'll probably withdraw the question. Are you aware that according to the police evidence of the people who were present when the faceless statement was made, that what was being said by Lonmin was twofold. What they were saying was that these were faceless people who are not our employees. That was the thrust of the statement. And SABC's response was then to bring photographs and so on, and then that statement was withdrawn. Are you aware that it was not merely about two-face, it was these are faceless people who are not our employees. And actually, General Mpembe, I think, said he was annoyed. And then he... were you aware of that?
No.
You weren't aware of it. No.
Okay. Secondly... sorry, Chairperson. Yes, you were not aware. Thank you.
Your statement of the evidence is correct. General Mbombo was the one who suggested looking at photographs. But,
that's correct.
But, okay.
Yes,
second question.
Second question is, apropos the suggestion that Mr. Semenya, I think, and also the chairperson to some extent, made about photographs and so on. It is your evidence, at least, that one of the people who were legitimate representatives of the RDOs, when you spoke to them, was Mr. Boy, correct?
He was one of the representatives that I spoke to, yes?
Yes. And it is the evidence of Mr. X, at least, and whom I wouldn't rely on very much, but of other people as well, that the same Mr. Boy was one of the people who were mandated to speak to the management at LPD. Can you accept that for now?
I can accept that. I wasn't aware of that, but that's
yes.
fine.
So, therefore, had the suggestions that have been made by Mr. Semenya and the chair been taken of the representatives at least, somebody like you would have said, well, there's Mr. Boy. He's one of our employees. He's not faceless. At the very least, that problem would have been resolved. That is an employee. Would you agree?
Before you answer, and you would have gone further, and you'd have said, not only is he Mr. Boy, not only is he one of our employees, he is one of the people, the representatives of the RDOs at Korea, who spoke to me about the matter last month. That's correct, isn't it? That's what you would have said.
Yeah, yes, I most likely would have.
Thank you, Chairperson.
Chair.
Yes, Mrs. Semenya.
May I just put one matter that arises?
Yes.
Mr. Da Costa, the adjustment in the salaries or wages of the RDOs in Impala it was not done through an allowance, was it?
No, I think Impala increased the actual salaries of the employees. At Anglo Platinum, it was done by way of an allowance.
That is all, Chair.
It appears actually from this exhibit page 264 and 265, where the memorandum that Mr. Kegotli wrote to Mr. Munro and Mr. Mokoena, dealing with the decision that should be made regarding the allowance, gave comparative tables, and the Impala one has in the column RDO allowance naught, and the Lonman proposed one is the same, and in the case of Anglo there was 750 rand. So Lonman appear to have got the idea of a 750 RDO allowance from Anglos. But of course the basic salary at Anglos was substantially higher, but that's not a matter we need to discuss at this stage. That's right, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm not quite sure how the ISCO arrived at the
Well, look at the
look
what's on the screen.
That's what's on the table. Yes,
Yeah,
that's
right.
what reflects on the table.
That shows you when your people, you weren't party to it, you made another suggestion they didn't accept, but when your people decided upon the 750 allowance for unassisted RDOs, they looked at this comparative table and they took the 750, which was the Anglo figure. That's right. But the basic salary was different, 1,000 rand difference. That's correct too. That's what the document says.
Yeah, so that's most likely what guided them, yes.
Yeah, okay, all right. I don't see anyone else wanting to ask you questions arising, so you will be excused from further attendance. Thank you for coming, for giving us your evidence. If it's necessary for you to come back, I don't think it's likely, but it's possible, then you must agree that you'll come back without our having to send you a subpoena. But if you're prepared to give me that undertaking, you'll be excused from further attendance.
That's fine, I'll give you that undertaking, Chair.
Thank you. All right, shall we now take the tea adjournment before we get the next witness, who's going to be Mr. Lowe, I believe. 15 minutes.
One, two.
Can you take the volume up a little bit? Okay, great. They're on air now. Sorry. It's a first story, no? She's on headlines. President Zuma. Yeah, after Zuma, because he did the budget speech. After Zuma asked.
I've been doing this review of
Thank you for having me on the PM desk, Karishni. Well, Karishni, it certainly has been a very somber mood for the bulk of the day today. Some of the miners that have been attending the proceedings are still trying to digest the death of a comrade of theirs in arms, and it really has been extremely difficult. Now, you will remember that Bai's murder now becomes the 8th person who has been killed since 2012. And we've seen quite a number of AMCU and NUM shop stewards or chairpersons being gunned down by unknown assailants. And police to date really have been battling to get to grips with who exactly is it that has been behind these particular murders. Now, since 2012 and up until now, 8 deaths is really quite a high count, and you can see that it really is reflecting on the faces of the miners that are here. There is a lot of fear. You know, many of them do believe that they have a target on their back. So that certainly is very difficult for them, that one of their comrades in arms has died, and they are not even sure whether or not he died as an attempt of robbery or it was an assassination attempt, but tensions are certainly very high here. Well, you'll remember that Michael da Costa was the vice president of operations in 2012 at Adjournment's Karee mine. Now, his testimony is very critical because he was one of the executives or one of the management that had engaged with the rock drill operators early in 2012, around May, June, and he was dealing with them about their demands for the 12,500 rand, and he'd expressed that there was absolutely no way that Adjournment could afford to pay that 12,500 rands because it was not within their budget, and if they were to pay that amount of money, they would end up losing business. So he also told the commission today that had they agreed to that 12,500, it certainly would have been a very difficult position for Adjournment to be in. But he then revealed later that Adjournment executives had given a memorandum, or really a moratorium, to express to some of the management that they should not engage further with the striking miners, especially considering that their strike was an illegal and unprotected strike. So it certainly put him in a very difficult position because he seemed to be willing to negotiate with the rock drill operators, but he was given a mandate that he should not be negotiating with people who had not gone through the correct legal channels. Well, Mr. X certainly has been feeling unwell yesterday. Now, his tummy ache that came out of the blue, one never knows whether that was because of the nerves he felt or because of the anxiety he's been feeling. He certainly must be going through some sort of mental state at the moment, considering that he has been on the stand for the bulk of about the past month. So this certainly has been playing on his mind, and the fact that he's recounting his version of events, recounting the murders, recounting the deaths, certainly is a very difficult thing for Mr. X to be in. But in terms terms of his mental state, you remember before Mr. X gave any testimony, Darlene Pofu made the application for Mr. X to be declared mentally incompetent. But Ian Farlam, who is the presiding judge here, then turned around and said that at the moment they are very satisfied with Mr. X's responses and with the way Mr. X has conducted himself so far. I don't know whether or not that was preemptive of the judge to say that he's quite happy with Mr. X's mental case, and it certainly he hasn't reflected very well on the SAPS's case, and it will be very interesting to see when the SAPS re-examine, are they going to actually say we no longer want to put Mr. X's testimony on the plate, or whether or not they're going to continue and say, you know what, he's been great for our case and we appreciate exactly what it is that he has given or he has spoken about. But the fact that one person who was identified in his speech. My pleasure. She cuts me off on air. She says, thank you, Nosy Tombi. Oh, my God. You think I handled it all right?
No, everything was just we find it the minutes, maybe they were running out of time.
They were running out of time. She cuts me off. My pleasure was right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, you had it and then just my pleasure.
Yeah.
It's fine,
Yeah.
Then there was a collection code.
Label says eloquent reporting on VM News.
commission commences.
Resumes. Mr. Van As, I believe you're leading the next witness.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I understand my own friend, Mr. Wesley, has some time periods he wants to allocate before we start
Yes,
with
that's
the witness.
correct. It's quite right. Mr. Wesley, would you please inform the assembled gathering of the time allocations?
Thank you, Chair. In chief, there will be 60 minutes allocated. The evidence leaders, 60 minutes. Thereafter, Noom and Mrs. Fundi, 120 minutes, that's 2 hours. Then the injured and arrested, 45 minutes. SAPS, 90 minutes, and MCU, 20 minutes. The LRC and the families have no cross-examination for this witness.
Thank you. Mr. Van As, you now call the witness.
We call Mr. Lowe to the witness box, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Lowe, sal u asseblief opstaan? Is u bereid om getuienis onder eed af te leggen?
Prepared to take evidence on oath.
Ik zweer dat die getuienis vir u gaan aflê voor hierdie kommissie die waarheid van wees, die hele waarheid, niks anders as die waarheid nie. Dat die regterhand oplig en sê ek zweer so op my God. Dankie, u mag sit.
Oath taken.
Yes, so what is happening is the evidence in Afrikaans will be interpreted here after the evidence is given. But in the room across the way, the Xhosa interpreter is present, and he will be interpreting the Afrikaans evidence into Xhosa, and those in the chamber who've remembered to bring their hearing apparatus with them will be able to follow a Xhosa translation, both of the English questions and of the Afrikaans answers. Mr. Vlas.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson. Mr. Chairperson, we're going to be relying on a number of exhibits, some of which are already before the Commission. We rely on a statement of Mr. Lowe dated 16 August 2012. That I understand has to be given a new exhibit number. I'm told it's quadruple D1.
Yeah, that is so.
We also rely on a statement of Mr. Lowe dated 25 October 2012. That's already an exhibit before the Commission. That's quadruple A36.
That's so.
The shooting incident report dated 21 August 2012. If you could please make that quadruple D2.
It will be so marked.
A series of photographs of damage to a bakkie that Mr. Lowe and Mr. Foster were travelling in on the 12th of August. If that could please be quadruple D3. I think the 3 point... I think there's 6 of them. That could be quadruple D 3.1 to 3.6, please.
Yes.
And then finally,
those photographs will be so marked.
And then finally, 2 photographs that are already before the Commission. That's Exhibit Triple J 27.9472 and Triple J 29.265.
As you say, they're
already before the Commission.
Yes, thank you. Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Mr. Lowe, where are you employed?
Because I employed deur Lonman Marikana by die intervensie eenheid sekuriteit.
I am employed at Marikana in the security sections.
And how long have you been working there?
Eindiglik tot en met die 16 Junie van hierdie jaar 6 jaar.
There's a bundle of documents before you.
Sorry, it doesn't come very clear to me.
Die 16 Junie.
From the 16th of June.
6 jaar.
Last year.
6 jaar.
It was 6 years then.
You have a bundle of documents before you. I'd like you to please refer to the first tabulated document in the bundle. Can you identify that document, please?
Ja, kan meneer die voorsitter.
Yes, I can, Chairperson.
What is that document?
Dis 'n bedryfsverklaring wat afgelees deur myself
It's a sworn statement made by myself
aan die Suid-Afrikaanse polisie en dit was gewees op die 16de Augustus 2012.
which was made to the SAPS on the 16th of August.
Do you stand by the contents of the statement?
Ja, meneer die voorsitter, maar
Yes, Chairperson.
as dit meneer die voorsitter behaag, wil ek graag net byvoegings maak tot hierdie verklaring en ook die volgende as dit moontlik is.
I just want to make some additions to this statement to the Chairperson and the following one.
What are those additions?
Op die eerste verklaring is daar geen melding gemaak van die hoeveelheid rondes of die aantal rondes en die tipe rondes wat afgevuur is tydens die 12de op die aanval op onsself nie. Ek sou graag net addisionele op die verklaring 6 rubberrondes wat ons uitgevuur het daai oggend byvoeg en dan 1 AAA ronde wat ons uitgeskiet het toe ons deurgegaan het om te kyk of meneer Fundi en meneer Mobelani nog reg is.
You talk about we or ons. Did you fire these rounds yourself?
If I could just be given the chance to interpret what has been said. I just want to add the following, Chairperson, the number of rounds that were fired on that day and the kind of ammunition that was used, which does not appear in this photo. I also mentioned rubber rounds and the usage of AAA-3.
Did you personally fire this ammunition, discharge this ammunition?
Dis korrek, meneer.
That's correct, Chairperson.
And how many rounds did you discharge on the 12th of August 2012?
Ek het 'n totaal van 7 rondes afgevuur.
A total of 7 rounds, Chairperson.
And what were those rounds?
Dit was 6 rubberrondes en
6
1 AAA ronde.
rubber rounds and 1 AAA. One AAA round.
Did you interpret what he said about Mr. Fundi?
That was part of the question, yes. And he added that was before the question, and the shots that were fired.
Nee. Deur myself. Meneer die voorsitter, as ek dalk net kan teruggaan, ek het dalk seker 'n bietjie vooruit gehardloop.
Go back a bit.
Ek het bedoel met die 6 rubberrondes wat ek afgevuur het, was tydens die aanval op myself en meneer Foster.
I referred to the rounds that I fired, Chairperson, when the attack was being launched on me on Mr. Foster.
En dan het ek ook 1 AAA ronde afgevuur toe ons inbeweeg het om vir meneer Fundi en vir meneer Mabelane te gaan help.
And then the A3, the AAA round was fired when we went to the assistance of Mr. Fundi and Mr. Mabelane.
You've made no mention of the discharge of those rounds in your first statement.
Nee, ek het nie, meneer die voorsitter.
I did not, Mr. Chairperson.
And if we can then please look at Exhibit Quadruple A36. It's the second tabulated item in the bundle, Mr. Lowe. Can you please identify this document?
Ja, meneer die voorsitter, dit is ook 'n verklaring wat afgelees deur myself.
Also a statement made by me, Mr. Chairperson.
Tydens ons ICAM verhoor, wat ons gehad het by Lonmin, is 'n interne ondersoek.
When an internal investigation was launched at Lonmin.
En dit was gewees en dit is geteken op die 25ste Oktober 2012.
Which was signed on the 25th of October 2012.
You use the expression in Afrikaans, ICAM verhoor. That's a description of the internal investigation held at Lonmin. Is that correct?
Dis korrek, meneer.
That's correct, Chairperson. It's an internal investigation. Chairperson, if I could possibly be given a copy of this document, because reference is being made to dates and times which I can't.
All right, perhaps let's take it slowly. When did you complete this ICAM statement?
Die ICAM statement, soos ek gesê het, meneer, is geteken en was afgehandel op die 25ste Oktober 2012.
It was signed and completed on the 25th of October, Mr. Chairperson.
If you look at page 4 of the statement, is that your signature?
Dis korrek, meneer die voorsitter.
That's correct, Chairperson.
And if I could please take you to page 3 of the statement, the top paragraph on page 3.
Ja, meneer.
Yes, sir.
In the first paragraph, if I could read it, you say in the second line, I also opened fire and managed to get off 2 shots before ordering Foster to get back into the vehicle so that we could retreat.
Dis korrek, meneer die voorsitter.
That's correct, Chairperson.
Did you fire any further shots during that incident?
Dis korrek, meneer die voorsitter.
That's right, Chairperson.
Can you please explain to the chairperson under what circumstances and how many shots you fired?
Meneer die voorsitter, ek het addisionele 4 rondes nog afgevuur wat
I fired 4 extra shots, Chairperson, after,
wat al 4 rubber rondes was,
which were all rubber rounds
vanuit die binnekant van die voertuig.
from inside the vehicle.
And then if you please go to tabulated document number 3, Mr. Chairperson.
Before we get to that, in the sentence that you first read, I also opened fire, managed to get off 2 shots. Was that live ammunition you were talking about, or rubber bullets?
Meneer die voorsitter, dis negatief, dit is rubber rondes wat ek op daai stadium
Negative, Chairperson, these were rubber rounds that I followed then, that I fired then.
And the second lot of 4 rubber bullets that you fired, was that when you drove through the crowd, leaving the scene, as you say in the second paragraph on page 10?
Ja, die 4 rondes wat ek daar uitgeskiet het,
4 rounds that I fired there
was tydens die aanval op ons.
was during the attack on us.
En dis toe ons besig was om te probeer wegbeweeg van die onmiddellike aanval.
That was when we were trying to get away from the area where the trouble was.
Did you file a shooting incident report in respect of the shooting incident?
Ja, ek het, meneer die voorsitter.
I did, Chairperson.
And if you go to tabulate document 3, that'll be exhibit quadruple 2, Mr. Chairperson.
D2.
Quadruple D2. Is this the shooting incident report that was found?
Dis korrek, meneer die voorsitter.
Correct, Chair.
Ek wil net graag, as dit die voorsitter behaag, ook net op hierdie verslag wat ek ingeval het,
I also want to draw the Chairperson's attention to
ook net melding maak van die byvoeging wat ek graag wil doen in terme van die rondes wat ek afgevuur het.
where I want to make an addition in terms of the number of rounds that I fired.
En hierso het ek heeltemal nagelaat om melding te maak van die 1 AAA ronde wat ek afgevuur het.
Here I neglected to make mention of the AAA3 round that I fired.
All right, now let's go back to the 12th of August 2012. And if I can please ask Mr. Bennett to put up the Google map of the Vonderkop area. If we could please go to EPL, Eastern Platinum. Can you perhaps show, Mr. Lowe, can you show us where exactly you people were at EPL when you got the...
Tell me, is this document, is this an exhibit? I know we have had Google Maps in the past. Is this one actually an exhibit? So what concerns me is how we can get a permanent record of what we're now going to be shown onto the record. Now, we've had some Google Earth maps in the past before us. I'm not sure whether this is, and certainly parts of what we can see here we've certainly seen on those. If he shows us things, perhaps you can describe in words, otherwise I'll have to describe in words what he's showing. And you can give attention possibly overnight to the question of whether we should put some document in as an exhibit which will assist those who follow the record later, not only those of us who have to read the record before the argument and when the report's being written, but I fear others I don't fear, I anticipate that others in the future will read the record or parts of the record of this commission. And so obviously we've got to have a complete record for them to see, and for ourselves to read as well, of course, when we're preparing for the matter.
Chair, if I can just interject, what we've done, what we propose to do with Google Maps, Mr. Bennett has the ability to save any picture that you see on the screen at any moment. And for instance, if we were to decide that this is a photograph that we wish to use, Mr. Bennett can immediately save it. We can immediately assign it an exhibit number, and it is then in the record. We will have it then.
So the concerns I've raised can be addressed.
They can be addressed.
Right, thank you. I'm pleased to hear that.
I'll interject every now and then to make sure that we do remember to save them.
If you can, perhaps we can have a special exhibit letter for all these saved maps, because it may not only be with this witness. And the hard copies can be printed in due course for us. But also, I'm also concerned because I said when you point something out, if they could please be described in words for us so that we understand that. All right, let's proceed.
Mr. Lowe, can you take us to EPL, where you started your shift that morning?
Ek kan meneer, as dalk net die fokus 'n klein bietjie kan uitbring sodat ek myself kan oriënteer op die kaart.
If I could just correct myself on the card, Mr. Chairperson.
As ek dan die persoon wat die kaart monitor of beheer net vra om na die regterkant van die
If I could ask the person who is controlling or monitoring just to proceed a bit to the right of the picture.
Kan nog na die regterkant toe gaan.
Again a bit to the right.
Kan nog regs beweeg.
And once more.
Kan ek vra dat die fokus net 'n klein bietjie uitgebring word as jy nie omgee nie?
If it could be made bigger, the term is if it could be zoomed out, yes.
Kan jy ook dan die kaart net vir my 'n klein bietjie opskuif na die boonste kant toe?
For it could be shifted a bit upwards.
But perhaps we can circumvent this if we can just maybe zoom in on the Marikana hostel where the actual incident took place, and we can get back to the other stuff later.
Kan jy nog 'n klein bietjie links gaan?
Just a bit to the left.
Links asseblief.
A bit more to the left. No. Links.
Okay, kan daar stop meneer?
If you could stop there.
Kan ek voortgaan meneer die voorsitter?
Can I proceed, Chairperson?
Sorry, can I interject? Craig, please say that is quadruple D 4.1.
So, Fanas, can I just ask, what date are we dealing with?
We're dealing with the Sunday, the 12th of August.
Thank you.
Commissioner. Mr. Lowe, can you point out with your strobe light where you stopped the bakkie? You make mention in your statement that the bakkie, you and Mr. Foster stopped your vehicle. Can you perhaps show us exactly where you stopped?
Dis korrek meneer voorsitter, as ek dalk kan vra dat u vir ons in daai omgewing net bietjie kan infokus.
If focus can be made in that area which I pointed out.
Okay, ek kan nog 'n klein bietjie na die regterkant toe gaan.
Slightly to the right.
Regs?
Right.
Ekskuus tog links.
I'm sorry, left.
Die kaart moet regs geneem word. Ons kan daar stop.
If you could stop there.
Meneer voorsitter, om voort te gaan met my getuienis.
Sorry. I take it on the right-hand side we can see the rugby stadium, the football stadium rather, with the grandstand. And then as one goes to the left, there's a crossing. There's a road that runs below the football stadium, and it reaches an intersection And at that intersection, on the northeastern corner of the intersection, that's where he's indicating at the moment.
Correct. Is that where you stopped your vehicle?
Daar's waar ek nou wys meneer, ons sit in daai omgewing daar's
We
gestop.
stopped in the vicinity of that point where I'm pointing to the point.
Not where the hand was, but immediately below the point that I referred to, effectively on the southeastern corner of that intersection, there is what amounts to a traffic island, and which goes eastwards from the point that we're talking about. And the point the witness indicated was a point in what really amounts to the northwestern corner of the island, the traffic island.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And where did you come from, Mr. Lowe?
Sorry, Chairperson, I'm sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to place on the record that insofar as the Google map is current and situational, I know that there have been some changes in some of those areas, some of which I have noticed. If there's any significant, and unfortunately the people I represent have had to leave early, who live there, who would know the area better because of the tragedy. If we pick up any changes between what the situation is now and what it was then we will raise it maybe tomorrow. But I just wanted to...
Okay, no, I appreciate it. Obviously, the rugby, I always call it rugby, I'm sure it's associated in football, actually. The soccer stadium, I take it, is still in the same place.
I think so.
And I take it the traffic island is still in the same place, too. Mr. Lotz is right. Mr. Lotz?
Chairperson, there's a way of resolving this problem because we can use an historical photograph. So maybe if Craig could go to the photograph, I know there's one from January 2013, and I think there isn't one from August 2012, but there's only one January 2013, and there's one a little bit before August 2012. If he could just use the photograph that's closest to August 2012, we'll avoid this problem.
Exhibits that he used depicting this area. Mr. Tip, during his cross-examination, put in exhibits depicting this area very clearly.
Yes, they depict the area clearly. I think Mr. Mpofu's problem is that this is an aerial photograph from May 2014, and the area may have changed. But we can change that base aerial photograph.
Anyway, do we have to do it now? It looks to me as if what we're seeing at the moment is probably the way it was in August 2012. Overnight, we can ask Craig to find the photograph to which Mr. Shastleson has referred, and we can carry on with that tomorrow. And if there are any changes, as Mr. Mpofu says, they can mention them. But I imagine, for the moment, the area that we're talking about is the same now, or certainly was the same in May 2014, as it was in August 2012.
Yes, I accept that, Chairperson. I'm happy to proceed on that basis. I just wanted to place it on the record in case I raise something tomorrow and then we say, why did I keep quiet? Thanks, Chair.
Carry on, Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Up to the point where the vehicle is stopped in what amounts to the northwestern corner of that traffic island.
And in which direction was the vehicle facing, Mr. Lowe?
Die voertuig het na die ooste kant toe gewys met sy neus na vore.
It was facing east. The vehicle was facing east, Chairperson.
Ekskuus tog, ek wil myself net herstel.
If I may correct myself.
Soos ek op dis wes, ekskuus tog meneer.
No, it was west. It was facing west.
Was facing away from the football stadium.
Dis korrek meneer voorsitter.
That's correct, Chair.
And who was in the vehicle?
Myself en Martin Foster was in die voertuig gewees.
Myself and Martin Foster were in this vehicle.
And can you remember what time this was, more or less?
Dit was ongeveer hier by 9:35, 9:40.
About between 9:35 and 9:40. I'm not very certain.
And can you tell the Commission in your own words what you observed?
Meneer die voorsitter, ons het in die pad in 'n noordelike rigting beweeg van die BMR se kant af, hierdie kant toe.
We were moving in a northerly direction, in that direction where
Ons
I'm
het
now
die voertuig
pointing.
hier ingegaan en daar gestop.
My vehicle went in there where I pointed and stopped where the stop is now indicated.
Op daardie stadium was die mynwerkers wat besig is met hulle strike.
At that time, the mine workers who were busy with their strike
Het beweeg van die koppie af in hierdie rigting.
were moving from the copy, as I indicate, from that
Van die
towards the
oosterse
right,
kant af na die westerse kant toe.
from the east to in a westerly direction.
Toe ons daar stop was hulle al reeds in hierdie area hier gewees.
When we stopped our vehicle, they were in that vicinity where I'm pointing now.
Perhaps the point he shows is directly opposite on the other side of the road from where his vehicle had stopped. And he indicated that the strikers had moved from the Kopi, which is the extreme left of this photograph, but from the Kopi, they'd obviously moved in an easterly direction towards the section opposite the football stadium. Is that correct?
Meneer die voorsitter, hulle het van die koppie af beweeg in 'n westerse rigting in, so met ander woorde
Chairperson, they were moved
van
from the
links.
copy, from left of the picture.
If the north as indicated on the exhibit is correct, top right-hand corner, you see north? If that's correct, then it must follow that if one moves from the right-hand side of the photograph to the left-hand side of the photograph, one must be moving from east to west. And if the copy is in the extreme to the left of the photograph, and they moved from the copy to where the vehicle is, they must have moved in an easterly direction, from west to east. That's if the north is correctly depicted, as I think it is, on the top right-hand corner of the photograph.
Meneer die voorsitter, ek vra om verskoning as ek myself net kan, ek is verskriklik op my senuwees,
I
ekskuus.
apologize, I'm a bit nervous, Mr. Chairperson.
Noord is daar, oos,
North
suid
is
en
that
wes.
side, the upper part of the top part of the picture.
Hulle het van 'n westelike rigting af beweeg na 'n oostelike rigting toe.
They were
Met ander woorde van links na regs.
from left to right, that would be from the west to the eastern side.
You indicate that they more or less came to, I don't know whether they stopped moving, but the point that you're talking about, they were to the west of your vehicle, effectively on the other side of the road, and near the continuation of the road which runs from east to west on the western side of the intersection. Is that right?
Dis korrek, meneer die voorsitter.
That's correct, Chair.
And how many of them were there approximately?
Meneer die voorsitter, in my verklaring geskryf, daar was
My
twee groepe
statement,
gewees.
I stated
In die voorste groep was daar plus minus 50 na 70 mense. En in die agterste groep was daar 1000, meer as 1000. Ek kon nie regtig
the
bepaal nie.
front group between 50 and 70. The group at the back, I'm not sure, but 1,000 or more.
Can you show us where the first group was and where the second group was?
Meneer die voorsitter, die eerste groep het hierso kom stop.
The first
In
group
hierdie
came to
omgewing
stop
net
here,
aan die
Mr.
begin
Chairperson.
van die pad daarso.
Just where the road starts.
Die tweede groep was omtrent na 30 na 40 meter agter hulle en hulle het
The
van hier af.
second group was about 30 meters behind that.
What you
and as
indicate
I
is that
indicate
the
now,
sorry, Mr. Interpreter. Did you finish? What you indicate is the first group was the other side of the road from where you were. In other words, on the western side of the road, which runs from the south to the north, and they were more or less opposite where your vehicle was. And then you indicate the second group was to the west of that. I think you said about 30 meters to the west of that, and they appear to be in a line which stretched from round about the continuation of the road which runs from east to west through the intersection, down parallel with the road going in the northerly direction to a point. It looked from what you showed as it was opposite the road which is at the bottom of the island, as it were, as one looks at the photograph.
Dis korrek, meneer die voorsitter.
that's correct, yes.
And were they armed?
Ja, hulle was almal gewapen, meneer die voorsitter.
They were all armed, Chairperson. All gewapen. I'm sorry?
Almal was gewapen.
All were armed, Mr. Chairperson.
What weapons did they have?
Meneer die voorsitter, dit het gewissel van 'n verskeidenheid van tuisgemaakte spiese.
It started from homemade assegais.
tot soms wat ons kan sê is gekoopte spiese.
Some looked like spears that had been bought, purchased.
Pangas,
Knopkieries, yes.
stokke,
Sticks,
metaleisters,
steel pipes.
And why were they dressed?
Kan jy
How were they dressed? Sorry.
Die meeste van hulle was geklee in overalls.
The majority were wearing overalls.
En bo die oorpakke het hulle of komberse of
on top
lap oor gehad.
On top of the overalls, they either had blankets or some other cloths.
And did you get out of the vehicle?
Ja, meneer voorsitter, toe ons gaan stop het ons dadelik uit die voertuig
Yes, when we stopped, we immediately went out of the vehicle.
Were you driving?
Nee, meneer Martin Foster het bestuur.
Martin Foster was driving.
And what did you do once you got out the vehicle?
Toe ons uit die voertuig geklim het ons dadelik vir die groepie wat voor was, wat aan ons onmiddellike westerse kant was, het ons aangedui om te stop.
We immediately, after alighting from the vehicle, spoke to the group that was in front coming to us. We warned them to stop.
You used the word aangedui. Did you verbally speak to them, or did you use hand signals?
We hand signaled.
We hand signaled for them
but
to
you
stop.
indicated to them to stop.
Ja, meneer de voorzitter.
Yes,
without actually saying to them you must stop, but you indicated by your hand.
Meneer de voorzitter, ons het vir hulle gewys om te stop en ons het ook verbaal gespreek en gesê stop.
We indicated to them by hand signal for them to stop. We also verbally told them to do so.
Show with your hand, raising your left hand, if you're giving an impersonation of a traffic constable at an intersection.
So gedoen.
Ja, meneer de voorzitter, dit kan dalk so voorkom. As ek net 'n verduideliking van dit mag
gee. Like that, but if I could give an indication.
My wapen was in my regterskouer.
My weapon was on my right shoulder.
Dit was na die skare toe gerig en ek het met die linkerhand het ek vir hulle gewys om te stop.
It was pointed at the group and I indicated with my left arm as I indicate for them to stop.
Continue, what happened then?
Op daardie stadium het die skare wat voor was, die klein groepie.
The small group which was in front, Chairperson, was at that stage in that
was in hierdie omgewing hier geleë en hulle het ons probeer flankeer aan ons regterkant wat uitbeweeg na daai area toe dan.
Flank us from that area as I indicate.
Hulle het so ver beweeg as om
they came up to that.
Yeah, we've got to take it slowly. You indicated they were opposite you, as I've indicated previously. On the left-hand side, or on the western side of the road where you were parked, and you indicated that they moved in a northerly direction to sort of block you off from proceeding from the island on which you were to the intersection and beyond. Is that correct?
Nee, voorsitter, dit is korrek, ja.
That is correct, Chairperson, yes.
In hierdie omgewing het hulle kom stop, meneer die voorsitter.
Came to stop in that
en hulle het met 'n half
vicinity.
Skuifelende beweging het hulle probeer om ons aan ons regterkant die flank daarso
te maak. They moved sideways to flank us from that side, Chairperson, as indicated by the
that side being the southwestern, well, it's actually the northeastern corner of the intersection that we're talking about.
Dis korrek, meneer die
voorsitter.
That's
correct, Chair.
Martin Foster het sy wapen in hulle rigting gewys.
Martin Foster pointed his weapon at them.
Op daardie stadium was ek op die radio en ek het geroep vir addisionele sekuriteit om ons te kom by ons uit te kom aan hierdie kant.
At that stage I was on the radio asking for backup from the others.
Die oomblik toe Martin Foster sy wapen in hulle rigting wys, het hulle teruggekeer na die middel van die.
Immediately Martin Foster pointed his weapon at them. They moved backwards, as I indicate.
Omdat ek die skare dopgehou het, het ek gesien dat daar.
As you indicate, that's of course to the southwestern corner of the intersection.
Dis korrek, meneer die voorsitter.
That's correct, Chair.
Toe Martin Foster sy wapen in hulle rigting wys of
when Martin Foster pointed his firearm at them.
Het hulle terugbeweeg in die groep in wat toe op daai stadium half uitgerek was.
Moved back to the group which was slightly stretched at that time, as I indicate.
My oog het dadelik 'n persoon gevang met 'n wit oorpak aan.
My eye caught a person who had a white overall.
En ek kan dit onthou omdat hy een van die laastes was wat by die groep weer aangesluit het toe hy
I
in hierdie
remember
omgewing
him
was.
because he was the last to rejoin the group that was moving back.
Ek dink omdat ek op die radio was, het hulle probeer om ons toe aan ons linkerkant, die flank aan hierdie kant toe te maak.
Because
Nie so
I was
ver nie, maar
on
hulle
the
was op daai
radio,
stadium as hulle daar.
They tried to flank us from the opposite side, as I indicate from the northern side.
En hulle toe probeer om ons aan die regterkant, aan ons linkerkant, hulle regterkant, die flank toe te maak.
Tried to move towards their right, which should have been our left-hand
What
side.
you showed was they moved in a southerly direction down the road next to which you were stationary, and moved slightly in an easterly direction at the road which is along the southern side of the traffic island.
Dis korrek, meneer voorsitter.
That's correct, Chair.
Op daardie stadium het ek my wapen na hulle toe getoon en gewys.
At that stage, I pointed my firearm at them.
Met my loop na vorentoe en hulle het hier as 'n groep bymekaar gekom.
And they came together, they grouped there, what I'm indicating.
Daar sit hulle
So there he indicates again the southwestern corner of the intersection.
Dis korrek, meneer voorsitter.
That's correct, Chair.
Daar het hulle bymekaar gekom en almal van hulle het in 'n hurkposisie ingegaan.
They all came up there and then in a crouched position.
Van daar het ek bespeur dat dieselfde man wat ek gesien het wat stadig na die groep toe terugbeweeg het met die wit oorpak aan.
From there I saw the man who was moving slowly towards them. That's the man in the white overalls.
Het 'n groterige klip na ons kant toe gegooi.
He threw a rock, a big stone at us.
Op daardie stadium het meneer Foster en myself albei rondes afgevuur.
It was at this stage that both me and Mr. Foster fired rounds.
Vir die rekord wil ek ook net meld dat op daardie stadium
For the record, I also want to mention at that stage.
Op daardie stadium het ons uitgeklim met die rondes almal nog in die magasyn van die halgeweer.
When we went out, the rounds were already in the magazines of the firearm.
Maar daar was nog geen ronde in die kamer.
Firearm,
but there were
sorry to interrupt you. You say firearm, he actually used the word halgeweer, which is, I think, more accurately a shotgun.
Oh, yes. But he mentioned that at that time there was still no round in the chamber.
Ja, daar was rondes in die magasyn, maar geen rondes in die kamer nie.
They were in the magazine, but not in the chamber.
Op daardie stadium moes ons eers ons wapens oorhaal om te vuur. Ons het ek kan nie onthou hoeveel Martin Foster het op 'n later stadium aangedui. Hy het 2 rondes afgeskiet.
We had to cock our firearms before firing, Chairperson.
And how many rounds did you fire?
Martin Foster indicated that he fired 2 rounds.
Dis korrek, meneer voorsitter, maar soos ek sê, ek kan glad nie getuig namens hom
Correct,
hoeveel rondes hy
Chairperson, but I
afgevuur het nie.
cannot give evidence with precision on the number of rounds he fired.
Al wat ek kan herhaal is die 2 wat ek op die verslag gesit het, meneer
All
voorsitter.
that I remember is the 2 that I mentioned in my statement, Chairperson.
Op daardie stadium was ek in staat geweest om 2 rondes af te vuur.
I was at that stage able to fire 2 rounds.
Wat albei rubber rondes was.
Which were both rubber rounds.
Die groep het ons toe gestorm. Terwyl ons besig was om te skiet, die groep ons gestorm en albei ons in die voertuig
group then attacked us, they stormed us.
As ek net 'n sekonde kan teruggaan, ons het
If I
ek het
could
daai
just go
het
back a second.
Martin Foster gesê om terug te kom in die voertuig sodat ons plan kan maak om uit te kom daar.
I then told Mr. Foster at this stage to go back into the vehicle so that we can get away from there.
Op daai stadium het hulle ons in die voertuig toegemaak. Martin Foster het die voertuig voor my binne gegaan.
Martin went into the vehicle before me. At that stage, they closed up on us.
Op daardie stadium toe ek in die voertuig ingaan, soos ek die voertuig binne beweeg het, was ek al reeds met 'n klip op my linker bobeen gegooi.
So I moved into the vehicle. I had already been stoned on my left leg.
Bobeen, that means arm, I think.
Bobeen.
Was your arm or upper part of your leg?
Bobeen.
My upper leg, sir.
Upper leg, I think, sorry.
Yes.
So you hit with a rock
The
on your upper, or stand on your upper leg.
Ekskuus tog meneer.
You were hit with a rock on your upper leg.
Dis korrek meneer.
That's correct, Chairperson, yes.
Soos ek die voertuig binne beweeg het, was ek met 'n knopkierie op die linkerskouer en ook in die linkersy geslaan.
As I moved into the vehicle, I was hit with a knopkierie on the left shoulder and the right arm.
Ons het die deure toegeslaan en
close the doors.
Daardie stadium ek kan ook vir die rekord sê toe ons gestop het, was ons voertuig nog aangesluit gewees.
I must also put on record that when we stopped our vehicle, we left it idling.
Ek weet nie wat het fout gegaan nie, maar toe ons in die voertuig inklim, het die voertuig doodgegaan.
I don't know what went wrong, but as we moved into the vehicle, it stalled.
En Martin moes toe weer sukkel om die voertuig op daardie stadium aan die gang te kry of die engine weer te
struggle to get the engine on again.
Op daardie stadium was ons toegepak gewees met mense wat ons hele voertuig omsingel het.
We were totally surrounded by the people, Mr. Chairperson.
En hulle het ons met spiese, knopkieries, pangas en die ander wapens wat hulle in hande gehad het aangeval.
They attacked us with the different kinds of weapons they had, the spears, the knopkieries and the pangas that they had.
Op daardie stadium het Martin die voertuig weer in gang gekry.
At that stage, Martin got the vehicle moving.
En ek kan onthou, ons het eers gesukkel om weg te kom en ek het vir Martin geskreeu, ry vos, ry.
First struggle to get away, I had to scream on him, get on, move on, move on.
And is that when you discharged the other 4 rubber rounds?
Dis korrek, meneer die voorsitter. Op daai stadium, omdat Martin met die voertuig gesukkel het,
because Martin was at that stage struggling with the vehicle,
het ek my wapen in my hande gehad en ek het basies aan die linkerkant van die voertuig, die passasierskant,
my firearm in my hand and seated on the left-hand side and discharged.
It was still a shotgun.
Dis korrek, meneer die voorsitter.
It was.
It wasn't a firearm, it was a shotgun.
Dis dieselfde halgeweer of shotgun
it's
wat
the same
nog die hele tyd van
weapon that I had.
melding maak, meneer die voorsitter.
And did you shoot through the window or was the door open when you discharged these 4 rubber rounds?
Nee, meneer die voorsitter, op daardie stadium was die venster al klaar gebreek, soos hulle ons
aangeval
het.
Chairperson, the window was already broken.
You discharged them through the broken window?
Dis korrek, meneer die voorsitter.
That's correct, Chair.
En daar was ek in staat om nog 4 rubberrondes af te skiet.
And
af
again,
te vuur.
it was at this stage that I fired 4 rubber rounds.
Ek en Martin Foster ek kan onthou, ons het eers gesukkel om weg te kom daarso, omdat die handrem van die voertuig nog op was.
We first struggled to get away from that point together with Martin.
En ons het reguit deur beweeg deur die skare. Ek kan nie onthou of ons
we drove through the crowd. I'm not sure as to
of ons iemand raak gery het of nie.
Whether we was any one of them that was bumped by the vehicle.
Ons het hierdie pad hierso weer in 'n suidelike rigting teruggevat.
This road, as I indicate, in the southerly direction.
As ek die meneer wat die kaart reguleer net kan vra om die kaart vir ons op te skuif.
As the person who is operating to shift the map.
Before we do that, can I just place on record what we've got now? This has been marked as Exhibit 4, quadruple D 4.2.
This road, as I indicated, it
Sorry, he said this road. Can you indicate to us again, please?
Nee, die voorsitter, dit is die pad wat aan die weste kant van die eiland is.
That is the road on the western side of the island, Chairperson.
Did you go down in a southerly direction?
Ja, meneer voorsitter, ons het in 'n suidelike rigting weer
gery.
Yes,
Chairperson, we drove in a southerly direction.
I'd like you to go back to the bundle of documents and to tabulate at point number 4.
It's now 4 o'clock.
Perhaps
I wonder whether we can tabulate at point number 4 at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. If that's convenient for you.
It's convenient. Thank you, Mr. Chairperson.
Chair, before you adjourn, may I just remind the parties that we have a meeting now to discuss the question of the expert witnesses, and that will be across the way in the overflow room.
Yes, thank you. On that note, we will adjourn until 9 o'clock tomorrow morning.
Can I come to 9 or saying?
Ons is klaar met die 12de.